What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week is the amazing Hope LaVelle.
Hello.
How's it going?
Da.
I like that as a reaction. I would like a gif of that so I can greet people with that now. That is kind of how I go into each meeting now that I think about it. Yeah. But hey, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I always love talking with you guys.
And we love talking with you. And yeah, we're here today because we're gonna be talking a little bit about a Familiar Quest Series 2 that Hope is going to be on. But before we get to that, I told you about this before the show, but I'm gonna remind the chat. I like to start these off, especially with people who may have been on the show before, which Hope has, but this is the first time being on with me as the host. Hope, how did you get into D&D?
Well, a long time ago. So my first encounter with Dungeons and Dragons started with my brother. I must have been probably about 7 or 8 years old. And my brother was playing D&D in our living room with a friend who was DMing. And I remember walking in and it was, I saw them with like a board and I started listening to them. And my brother was like, I go into the tavern. And then like the DM was like, well, then this happens. And I was like, how did he know what happened? I don't see any cards or dice. I didn't see anything. I was like, how did he know what was going to happen? And then he's like, well, I go back outside. Oh, when you go back outside, you see this person. And I'm like, how does he know that? And I was just like so bamboozled by what was happening. And it wasn't until years later, I think it was like late middle school, early high school, where, thank the gods for my nerdy friends was like, you gotta try this. So let's try this. This is so cool. And I was like, all right. So I started with a 3.5. My very first character was a ranger named Trinnell. He was a very interesting character who fell in love with Robin Hood, to put it simply.
I love that.
It was such a weird thing, but I will always remember that very first campaign and how weird it was that Robin Hood showed up. You never know in D&D.
Yeah, it's true.
Sky's the limit. But yeah, so that was my first, into D&D. It was a 3.5 system. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think the first time that I heard about D&D was like around that same age, except I didn't have an older sibling that played it. I saw it on Dexter's Laboratory.
Wait, really?
Yeah, there was a D&D episode of Dexter's Lab, and I was so confused because I had heard of this game. I've heard that there was a game called Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm like, okay, so this is it. But then it gets Dexter's Laboratory weird, and so I'm sitting there trying to figure out like, so how do you play this game? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I didn't have Google then
Yeah.
to find out how to play it. So I think I had that idea of Dexter's Lab D&D in my head for probably like, oh God, close to like 8 or 10 years before someone was like, no, this is actually how you play the game.
So that was when you first started playing.
No, I fell into this weird group of nerds who shunned D&D, and you're like, no, we can't play D&D. We like Star Wars, but we don't play D&D.
Yeah.
But no, eventually I saw the light.
I grew up in the Bible Belt, of course. So very much there was that stigma against Dungeons and Dragons that it was the devil. But my mother was so supportive of me playing. And she used to be like, yeah, well, your father used to do 24-hour sessions of Dungeons and Dragons. Like he would be in the basement with his friends for 24 hours being, playing D&D. So she understood the game. She knew it was just just
That's
fun.
so cool.
So, but yeah, so it turns out my dad's a huge geek. So it's great. I guess it runs in the fam.
That is definitely the good version of that. One of my friends, his parents are very religious, and they weren't too sure about us playing D&D in the house. And I did find out that at one point we played in the upstairs. At one point, his dad was hiding in the stairway, listening to us play to make sure we weren't worshiping Satan.
Okay, fair. At least he
And I
didn't
was like,
At least he didn't like barge in and be
Yeah.
like, "You are worshiping the devil. I know it." But giving
Those
it a
evil
chance.
geometric dice.
A dice should not have 100 sides. It's physically impossible.
Let's be real, though. It probably should. I've seen
Yeah.
those things. They're dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're here to talk about Familiar Quest Season 2, and you're playing Dotty again. As the code says, Dotty is back.
Dotty is back.
So in case people either, didn't see it or whatnot, who is Dotty?
Dotty the Dandelion is a sweet little sing-songy dandelion who is a bard, and she just wants to spread joy and love. It's been a while since I played her, so I will fall back into her as soon as we start playing. But yeah, she's I've never played a bard before, so this has been really interesting. Yeah. So it's like
that
one of the
actually surprises me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because I have a lot of, music background and stuff, but it never occurred to me to play a bard, mostly because I'm usually not the face of the party.
Okay.
And bards usually can sometimes tend, either bard or the paladin, tend to be the face of the party. And so I guess it just never dawned on me to try it.
I will say I did fall into a similar camp of like, I knew about bards, I never tried it, and I was just like, whatever. And then I tried it, I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect for me.
I was surprised at how many things a bard could do. I was like, I can do this? I can do this? It's amazing. I used to never play magical characters. I would always play like ranger would be as far into the magical that I would go.
That's as far as you dipped a toe in.
I dipped a toe in. I would always play barbarians and fighters and monks and stuff. So because I was afraid of the magical part, I was like, that sounds so complicated. I'm just wanting to hit things with my sword, So, but finally, I was forced, quotation marks, whoever is not watching the screen, to try playing a druid, and I was like, whew. I fell in love. I was like, this is it. This is for me.
I know what you mean about the magic users of like, this is a lot. The unfortunate thing for me is I would normally find that out while playing them.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, oh no, this is it's too much. I always do that in like video games, like Dragon Age. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start as a wizard, and then I get like 15 hours in, I'm just like, I suck as a wizard. I just need to restart.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that when you're like, I'm going to try this character or I'm going to try this class and I think it's going to be really great, and then you're just not vibing with it.
Yeah,
that happened with me, and believe it or not, monk.
Really?
I thought for sure I was going to love being a monk because I come from a stunt background. I love martial arts, and I absolutely hated it.
What was it about it that you didn't like?
I felt like I couldn't do anything. Like like outside of like as a druid, the sky's the limit on like being able to use your spells outside of combat for really interesting things, but also being so powerful in battle. And we did start at a low level, but I definitely feel like as a monk, I would like hit things and I'm like, I got all 3 hits, and it was like, you did 6 points of damage, and I was like, really? And then of course it was even worse when you didn't, like when you missed your hit, and you're like, I'm sure there's tons of people in the chat that are like, monks are the best. And I agree if you know how to play them. I did not. It didn't work out.
The funny thing is literally yesterday on Champions of Lore, we talked about monks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the thing is that there was a consensus, especially for the lower levels of it, that it was like, there's not enough key points. There's not enough key economy there to feel like you're doing enough.
Yeah, I feel like I have to be really like, what's the word? Really careful with using my key points. It's like holding on to them, almost hoarding them. I'm like, what if I need them later? Yeah. So it's like when to spend them and not. And that was kind of stressful for me.
It does. I do agree that it does kind of kill the vibe of it when you're like, all right, I'm going to do a super cool monk thing. And you like punch twice and like spin kick. And you're like, all right, that's it for the day. You guys have a good one.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be, you have to have the right DM, I would say, for a lot of times of playing a monk, because as a monk, I love doing quote, quote, called shots just because I like
Yeah.
the flavor of like, well, I'm gonna roundhouse kick him to the face.
Yeah.
And like my DM will be like, well, that's a called shot, so you're gonna have to, do this and this.
Oh, gosh.
And so I'm like, but I love DMs like TJ Swarm. I'm in a home game with him, and he's just like, do it, that's epic. He's all about like bending the rules a little bit. Just be like, yeah, call that shot. He's like, I'm gonna punch him in the eyeball. It's like, do it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, I definitely follow that camp. Like the only time I'll be like, okay, we're gonna add a little something extra if like one of my players like, I'm gonna try and chop his hand off, and then I'm just like, okay, we gotta work a little bit harder for that.
Yeah, or like you have an arrow and you're trying to get like in the eyeball or something of a monster, like that's a called shot. But like if you're just a monk who wants to do parkour martial arts for every hit and just be descriptive about what you're doing because it's more fun, I think those aren't called shots. That's more just descriptive.
Yeah, that's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you come about, with all that in mind, how did you come about deciding that Dotty was going to be a bard?
You know what? I created the character and the personality, and I just thought, she's probably going to be very sing-songy. She's going to just have a musical sense about her.
She had that vibe.
The vibe. And you never, sometimes you create a character and you start with like the race and whatever, and you're just like, it just falls together, and just like, it's like when you're writing a book or a character for a book, like the character tells you who they are. Yep. And I know that sounds very actory of me.
Oh, no,
like,
no, I'm a writer. I get it.
Yeah. But sometimes the character tells you what they're supposed to be, and it all just kind of comes together. I originally, and I think this kind of helped with that, but when I was talking to you guys about making Dotty, they were like, okay, well, we were doing something special for Earth Day. So they were like, pick something kind of earthy. It would be really great. And I'm like, well, bam, like right off the bat, I was like, I want to be a Campestri. I want to be a little singing mushroom because that would just be so cool. But then they were like, as soon as I said that to them, they were like, there was like this moment of silence. And they were like, yeah, we could do that, but we already have a Campestri familiar.
Like, we just did a mushroom.
I was like, oh no, I had no idea because I had checked the familiar list and I just didn't see it, and so I was like, oh, I can be a cute little. And then so I was like, okay, backup plan. What do I got? And I remember I had seen Amador, the dandelion. I don't know if you guys know who this is.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a creature that I found on D&D Beyond. But it was such a cute, it has a cute picture. It's like this dandelion that has like 1 foot up on like a plant and like a sword in one hand. And it's just this cute little dandelion. And, it says here that like the role-playing notes of playing this Amador, or like not role-playing, but it is a creature that it's only 3 feet tall, but it's a dandelion who finds poetry and everything and is quick to fall head over heels in love. And it was like, I just loved that feeling. And I'm like, yeah, that definitely suits who I want to play.
I love that. I did just realize that I hadn't reminded the chat that, hey, you can ask questions in the chat by putting question : then the question. So if you have any questions for Hope about anything that she does, or for Dotty the Dandelion, or for Familiar Quest, put those into chat, and our awesome mod Martin will grab them and put in a little text doc.
Please do.
Yeah. So the one of the things I wanted to ask this question. I had this one on my mind all day, and I feel like it's kind of an obvious answer, but I'm just curious. Did you find that there was any differences between role playing a familiar and like a normal character?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, because like when it first started and they're like, this is a familiar quest, we're all playing familiars, I was like, how do you do that? I was kind of struck with like, how does one play a familiar as a full-blown character? Because they're companions, and they might not have as many powers or like things that they can do. So I was like, how do I create this character? I also found when we were playing that I felt very vulnerable. I felt like this little creature who was trying to take on a big task.
Yeah.
Like even just opening a door, like I'd have to jump and like jump get the door handle, and like it was just, but I loved it. It was such a just an experience of like, sometimes as, we play these super big, awesome characters that just like nothing can touch them, but playing a little familiar is just like, this is cute and adorable and I'm very scared I'm gonna die.
Right. I already have that feeling when I have a familiar. I'm like, nothing can happen to this. I love them. They are my everything. Do not touch them. And so then to play them, oh my God, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. And it was so cute to like see what everybody in the show had created.
Yes.
Just absolutely adorable. Very just creative, making these like little familiars who, and that was one thing I was like, I'm a familiar without a companion. Like I feel so lost.
Right?
Like it's our duty to be someone's, companion. That's what we do.
The real adventure was the companions we made along the way.
Exactly.
So yeah, you were on a few episodes of series 1 with Todd running it. How did that go?
Playing with Todd is always an adventure, and I love it. He is such an amazing storyteller. Unlike anybody else I've ever played with, he's got such an imagination and such a twist for the dark and dramatic, and when he was like, oh, we're gonna be doing these cute little characters for Familiar Quest, and oh, by the way, you're in Barovia, and I was like, wait, what? How does that work? So, but we made the best of it. We saved the day, and believe it or not, the way it ended was we stayed in Barovia and made it our home. And I think the last thing Dotty did was she took over a pub, made it her own, does performances every night for all the people in Barovia to lift their spirits and give them mead, and like I just thought that was such an interesting choice. So she's like, well, I'll just stay here and make everybody happy, do what I can.
I feel like an adventuring party walking into a tavern in Barovia and seeing a living dandelion that is owning and running the tavern is possibly the most unexpected thing to happen in a Ravenloft campaign.
yeah, exactly.
I love that. I kind of hope that someone does that. If you're running a Ravenloft game, maybe a little dandelion needs to own a tavern.
Absolutely, I love crossovers like that.
Oh, I do that all the time. I steal stuff from streams so often.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, that's a great idea. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I had a person reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, we're doing this campaign, and guess what? All of the heroes of the plane show up in our thing, and Penelope Halfpine is the mayor of our town." And I just thought that was so adorable.
I love that. I love that so much.
I'm like, that's great. I love it.
One of my friends actually did that with one of my home game characters. I had this character that just anytime I needed DM magic to happen, I just had this old wizard named Driftwood show up. And he had been in a few games that had happened, and he texted me one day and he's just like, "Hey, is it okay if I put Driftwood in my game?" I'm like, "Absolutely, do it."
I love it. Yeah, it's such like a compliment that somebody wants to use your content in their own campaign.
Yeah,
I think.
Oh yeah, and like you're talking about with crossovers, like I love that sort of stuff happening. Like I ran a game for Dungeon Scrollers that was all about multiverse stuff, and Lauren was on it, and I was like, "Hey, could you play Orkira?" And she was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Yeah," because I kind of want everyone playing their long running characters meeting each other, because I love that stuff.
That is cool. I think I remember when Lauren was on D4 and also on Heroes of the Plains. She was like working really hard to make sure that the timelines weren't going to cross. There was not going to be, like any weird timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Like, having to deal with that. Like, I think the D4 took place like a year before what was happening in Heroes of the Plains. So, she'd get a hat from D4 and she'd pull it out in Heroes of the Plain. Just stuff like that I thought was really cool.
Oh yeah, no. Well, that was one of the things that I told her was like one of the points of that adventure was that there are certain characters throughout the multiverse that only appear once. throughout all of them. And so most of the time I have it where like if a person's playing a character for a long running time and they have like a backstory because of how much they've played, I'm like, you're the only one that exists. You're this I can't remember, I think I called them like unparalleled or something. Where
Oh,
it's like you're a special entity in the multiverse because there's not another one of you.
I love that. I
Yeah,
have
so
never heard that before.
yeah, so that's why I told Laura, I'm just like, Kira's perfect for this.
Wow. That's so awesome because, I've been studying up on my physics a lot lately, and there's all this talk about the multiverse.
Hmm.
And, sometimes you just feel like, well, there's a million of me, so what's the point? One of me is going to do the right thing,
He's gonna do it right.
It might not be me, but it's going to happen. And so to the fact that in this world of multiverses, you make people who are purely unique. I had never heard of that idea before, and I love that.
It was kind of my fun way of figuring out how player characters work, especially like in Forgotten Realms, because like we have like Minsk and Vajra and all of these like mainstay characters that we know about, but like all of us have home games where these characters are only appearing in that one story, but it's still the same world that everyone's playing
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun to like kind of put a story to that.
That's great.
Yeah. So Dotty ended up with a tavern.
Yeah.
What are you hoping Dotty does this time around in series 2? Because obviously we're not giving spoilers on this. We don't know what's happening.
We have no
Yeah,
idea.
this is pure speculation.
I can't even imagine like the wonderful world we're going to be put into.
Oh, hang on, real quick before you answer that. Martin is going to be doing the giveaway in chat right now because again we're live. I forgot to say that at the beginning. Hi, we're live. So the keyword is going to be dandelion. All lowercase. And so watch for Martin to start that one. You can put that in there and then enter for a chance to win 42 chests of your choice, except for Bahamut. And that will be open for 2 minutes. Sorry, go ahead, continue.
No, that gave me time to think. 'Cause I honestly, I'm not so sure. I definitely think that Dottie wants to form a band out of the companion, out of all the familiars. She's gonna give a role to everyone. Who's gonna be the singer? Who's gonna be on guitar? Who's gonna drum? Like even if they don't have skills, it's gonna be like a side quest for her to like make a band out of everyone.
I love that.
We'll just be a traveling band. I don't know if everyone's gonna be into it, but she's gonna try. And I think another thing that would be that Dottie's kind of wishing for is that someone will put the enlargement spell on her and she'll get to grow and see what it's like to be big.
Oh, that would be so cool. Also slightly terrifying, just this giant
Yeah.
dandelion going down the street. But just like, no, I want to be friends. You
Yeah.
want to be in a band?
Want to be in a band? That would be a great running theme. Just everyone on the street.
Like my players at home have this long running joke of like trying to open a tavern everywhere they go and trying to hire people for said taverns. And I think it'd be great if you were just like, hey, have you ever thought about being a band manager? Just trying to find a place for everyone that
I
they
might be
can put
stealing
with.
that. That's great.
Hey, I got a great tavern game for us to all play. It's called Bard Band. You just go with the rhythm on the spell.
Yeah.
Got to ease them into it.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, so Familiar Quest Series 2 is starting August 15th, I believe. I think that's right. Yeah. So so be sure to check back often. We're gonna be talking about Familiar Quest Series 2 for quite a bit up to its start on August 15th. That's a Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. But that's not the only stream that you're doing right now. You're on Children of Éarte.
Children of Éarte with DM Deborah and Wool.
Yeah. How's that going?
It is incredible. It's so magical because Deborah is such a good DM. She always knows she always has the right words to describe something. She just pulls from a huge list of vocabulary that, just really paints a picture. And she always knows which role is perfect for the situation. She's when someone asks if they can do something, she'll be like, give me an investigate. Like it's always so perfect. Like she is a wonderful DM. And I love her homebrew rules that she's introduced. And the one that I had never heard of before was this amazing rule of the DM can roll your rolls for you so that you can't metagame. So yeah, it's very interesting. So let's say that you need to do a perception check, and you can be like, will you roll that for me? And she'll be like, what's your modifier? And it's like a +2. And she rolls and she goes, you don't see anything, but you don't know if you really don't see anything or if you just failed your perception check.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great thing because, you want to getting to experience the game as your character is experiencing it without knowing the truth and not without metagaming. Like, okay, I know that I failed that perception check. So what I'm seeing is not true, or the fact that I don't see anything is not true, but I have to play it as if I failed it and don't know. So getting to pull away, because like that's one of my biggest pet peeves is like metagaming, of course. So to pull that aspect out, you're just like, it's so much more enjoyable.
That's very interesting, especially the aspect of like, hey, can you roll that one for me? I don't think my players would want that because I roll terribly. It's like, if you always want to fail, let me roll for you. But yeah, no, I get what you mean by that one. I think one of them that I know I've had this discussion before with other people that specifically is like insight. Is like sometimes insight feels like you've suddenly grown a superpower.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I got a nat 20.
Yeah.
I know this, and there's always a little bit of argument about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So who is your character for Children of Éarte?
So I play an 80-year young Robin Beckett.
That's so good.
She is your granny for hire, and she's an adventurous soul, who is never ready to like give up. She's 80 years old and she's been pulled into this adventure, and she's so excited about it because once you're kind of in your later years, you're kind of like, well, I guess it's time to settle down and just kind of live out what's left and not maybe not do much but she gets this chance to have this one maybe final adventure, but she has taken it by the horns and she's just loving every second of it to actually be able to get this experience. It feels like such a blessing.
I love that. That's a character concept I had never even thought about before, but I guess Children of Éarte is like really the perfect one for that, considering like it is this secondary world type of story where you all like started in like reality.
Yeah. I mean, we basically started in quote the real world of us, of being, we're humans, but we're not just human race. We are just humans from the present day world, like Robin is from Peekskill, New York, and other people are from Atlanta, Georgia, like these real things. Yeah. And we go on this trip, and suddenly this trip turns into a magical adventure. And here we are, still humans from the real world, experiencing a truly magical event and having to deal with that. And we started at level 1. We're only level 2 at this point. And
oh my God, really? I didn't realize it was still that low of level. My God.
Yeah, it's a slow burn and I love it. But just that experience of like, how would a real human react to this situation?
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that, we haven't told anybody our race or our class. Like nobody in the audience knows which class we are. Some of them have been starting to figure it out, but we're very careful of being like, oh, I'm playing, straight up, I'm playing this class or whatever, because we're still figuring out our spells as they all happen naturally, or I guess unnaturally. Like Robin had this moment where she could hear whispers behind a door, but she couldn't make them out because they sounded like a weird language. And so she pulled out a hearing aid and she goes, oh, well, this hearing aid always helps me comprehend languages better. So finding real world applications for your spells.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's kind of how it goes, you know, you know, using your lightning bolt spells by rubbing your feet on the carpet and causing a static shock or whatever. You know, it's the most fun to try to find these like real world applications for your spells.
Sorry, I'm literally like making myself tear up with laughter right now because I'm just imagining this 80-year-old woman on a car. It's just killing me. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, how many episodes are y'all into now?
I want to say we're going into our 17th episode.
Wow.
Somewhere around there.
And how long are the episodes?
They're 2 hours.
I mean, all right, that's for me perfect sweet spot of
Yes,
of a
it
show.
absolutely is.
But man, 2 hour sessions, 17 of them still level 2. That
Yes.
is wild.
Yeah, and I love it because again, we're these unexperienced humans who have to figure out what's going on. If we were already level 3, 4, or 5, it wouldn't be fun. You know, it'd be like, oh, we know what's going on. We have all these powers. We're using them, but
Yeah.
it's the fun part of just figuring stuff out slowly. Again, the slow burn is absolutely wonderful.
And yeah, I feel like it would be harder to kind of like keep that mystery going by the time you get your subclass and then your level
Yeah.
5 abilities. Like as soon as someone's just like, I'm gonna punch him twice, it's
Yeah.
like we kind of know which one you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because like Silas, who is Adam Bradford's character, as his character is like a huge geek, like a comic book geek, super video games, pop culture, like he knows everything. And so when magical stuff happens, he'll be like, oh yeah, he's like, yeah, that makes sense because I play video games and that's exactly what happens in video games or something. So he's one of those people who's like, I just did this magical thing. Maybe I can do it again. And he'll be like, trying really hard to like levitate stuff and
like Silent Bob.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can I make it happen again? Or like he'll see someone else do something. He'll be like, I wonder if I could do that. And like he's thinking really hard, or he's doing like air bending, or he'll be like doing water bending to see if he can like do things. And it's hilarious.
That's so
I love
good.
it.
Yeah, the fact that it's secondary world is really fascinating to me because I've always thought that it'd be like a very interesting way to do a game, but I could never like sit down and figure out like a good way to do it.
My very first DM experience, I wrote a 6-session campaign based off the book called The Child Thief by Brom. I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
So it's basically a dark storytelling of Peter Pan.
Yeah.
And I had just read the book. I was like, this would make a really fun campaign. So I actually had my players start themselves off as kids in Brooklyn in the 80s, I think.
Oh,
and
wow.
and so they made all these characters, and like my character has a skateboard, and like mine, you know, listens to like Kiss and stuff like that, and they like all had these really street punky kind of characters.
Yeah.
And then I like roll in the fog, and then you know, Peter, I say like this person named Peter comes and like, and you guys get into this, like he helps with like a street fight, and then he's like, come with me, and then they go into the fog and suddenly into this magical world. So again, they are humans
I love it.
in a magical world, and so it was I was kind of already like not used to the idea, but like you know, it was like a thing that I had done before, and it was like a really fun experience.
That's awesome. Well, okay, so that actually means I can ask this question because it was something that I wasn't quite sure about in my head, because like for a show, like everyone is in on it, like you know, the thing, everyone's read the assignment, you know, and because you're all there to do the show, and you have the thing of like, we're not talking about the classes, we're trying to keep that as mysterious as we can. Did that still happen in the home game one, where like obviously people knew what classes they were, but did they try to still role play where it's just like, oh, I don't know what I am? Yeah,
so absolutely.
That's so good.
They like, we had was it a bard who the Mask of Many Faces, where or no, it was the magical world began to affect them.
Okay.
And so one of our characters like woke up, and suddenly they were a Luxodon or something like that. And they were like, my beautiful face.
Oh my gosh.
And, like this magic affects them all differently. And like, it was really fun because he decided he wanted to play a Luxodon, but he starts off as this kid in the streets. And then in the magical world, he eats the fruit and he eats the food. And then one day, and then the next morning he wakes up and he's a completely different character, and he's just like has to live with that. And it's really fun.
I really love that because that gives me the same vibe as like those old the Universal Studios animated movies in the 90s that were always like a bit darker than Disney.
Yeah.
And so like that really just sets the tone for it. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really fun and I kind of miss doing that. I don't DM very often. I've only done it maybe twice. I did a one shot with some friends online, and then I did the 6-session campaign, and then I got to DM once on a live stream. We were doing a 24-hour charity event, and my session was at like 3 a.m, so I didn't feel a lot of pressure. But it was a charity, but the rule was everyone who's DMing had to be a first-time DMer.
Oh, interesting.
And that was really cool. So I got asked because at that point I had never DM'd, and so when I got called, I was like super nervous, and I like studied really hard to like make sure, because there's that fine balance of being a DM, of being like super prepared, but also being able to just go with the flow, whatever your characters want to do. So yeah, it was really fun. I like DMing for a live stream is definitely really different from just being around the table.
I what's funny is the first time that I ever DM'd on a stream, I didn't really think about that until like 10 minutes before, and I was like, oh wait, this isn't just DMing a home game, dude. Yeah. Like you need to be on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, and the biggest thing about being the DM is pacing.
Yes.
When you're on a show, you gotta naturally keep the pacing go without rushing anything. Letting the characters have their moments, but being able to find those breaths in the moment to carry on and keep it. So I think that's literally the most important thing about a DM on a live stream for anyone who wants the advice is just keep the pacing going, or people are going to lose interest in your story. Keep it moving.
Oh yeah, the loss of interest it's real. It's dangerous.
Yeah, you start out with a lot of people in the chat, and then it kind of dies out. But if you can capture them in that moment and like keep them staying, because the story is moving and they're going to see what happens next, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a couple questions from chat, but remember, if you have any questions for Hope, you can put them into the chat with question : and then question, and we'll ask them here on the show. But we're gonna start off with Cassius335 says, question: speaking of Barovia, has Hope been following Black Dice Society at all?
No, I haven't.
See, here's the thing. This is I actually meant to preface this, and I should have beforehand. Here's the thing: content creators, we are very busy, and we love all of our friends, and we wish we had time to watch all of their stuff.
It's taking the words out of my mouth. There are so many great shows, and the Black Dice Society is one of them, and I love them and I support them fully, but you're right. Our lives are so busy that I try to make time for like D4. I'll lurk. I won't be able to be active in them, and I'll throw them on if I can. Other shows, one shots, I definitely try to support, especially if they're for charity. But following a full campaign, as much as I'd love to, I mean, I don't even have time for Critical Role. It's just it's so much, especially with my full-time career of motion capture and stuff. Like, it's so hard, and I'm like, there's so many good ones. And so to everyone in chat, please support all these amazing shows and do the watching for us.
Yes, 1,000%. I love that. Yeah, I tell people often, I'm like, I have a cheat code for Black Dice Society. I'm the podcast editor. If it wasn't for that, I love B Dave, I love Mark and Tanya and all of them, but I would not have time to watch it.
I don't know how B Dave does it. He's like on a million shows and like on TV. And like, I remember when he first joined our Beyond Heroes show, he didn't have a lot going on. But within those couple of months, everything just blew up for him, and I'm so happy. And like, he's such a celebrity now, and I'm like, I get to be like, Yeah, well, I'm married to him.
Yeah.
If you don't know, our characters got married in the Heroes of the Plain show, so I'm like, he my husband.
I love that. Yeah, no, trying to watch them, like when I first got this job, I started making all these friends with all these cool shows and everything, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch all my friends' stuff, and like I got a week into it, I'm just like, I have too much ADHD for this. I need something besides TTRPGs. This is literally all my viewing time.
I don't know how people like Lauren, Lauren Oboe, for people who probably know her as Laura Urban. I don't know how she does it. I think she has one of those time thingies that Hermione had, a little time turner, because she watches everyone. Yeah. And she supports everyone's show. Every time I pop into a stream, she's there, not only listening, but like in chat actively, like supporting. And like no matter where I go, she's there. And any one shot campaigns. And I don't know, because she's so busy with work. I'm like, how do you do it? I look up to her for that. It's just amazing.
You're a wizard, Lauren.
You are a wizard, Lauren.
But what you're saying there, though, about like B-Dave being so busy, I have a ongoing joke with him that he is so busy and so prevalent on the internet, he will show up in things that I don't even expect him to. Like, so a few weeks ago, my wife and I found the show Actually. Okay. And we're like, oh my God, I love this. This is totally our style of game show. And so we binged a bunch of it. And the next day, as the internet algorithm does, it starts feeding me Actually ads and stuff like that. And literally the first ad, it was like, and on our show today, B. Dave Walters. I'm like, what the heck? I just found out about this show.
he is omnipresent. He is everywhere, and good for him. It's so good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like no one else is as deserving as he works so hard.
He really, really does. Let's see. The Lurking Writer says, question, would Dotty the Dandelion like to be Penelope's friend? And if so, how would Hope like to see them meet? Or how would like to see them their meeting happen?
Oh my God, yes! Okay, so here's how it would go. Let me play this out. Oh my goodness, you're so pretty. Do you want to be my friend? Oh my, wait, let me get this. Oh, hell, nope. Okay, Dotty has a southern accent. Howdy. Oh, would you, where's my southern accent? I'm Southern. How can I not pull out a southern accent?
You're doing really great. Good. I believe in you.
Well, hi. Do you want to be my friend? Oh my goodness. Yes, I would be your friend. Well, that's great because I want to be your friend. What do we do? I think we become friends. Oh, I love this. Do you want to start a band?
Hope LaVelle, everyone. Well done. Oh my gosh. That was incredible. Lurking right in the chat internet, you're welcome for me prompting this.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question.
That was fantastic. Let's see. Star Chaser 43 says, question, has anyone from Heroes of the Plains floated the idea of a reunion stream at some point in the future?
No. But that would be amazing.
It is a thing that exists as a possibility some point.
that would be so cool, even just as a one shot to bring the band back together, literally.
Hey.
Yeah.
Dotty could get them to start a band together.
Yeah. We got the perfect people. Yeah, that would be really fun. I feel very blessed that a lot of people from Heroes of the Plain have joined us in Children of Éarte. Mm-hmm. So I still get that joy of getting to play with them, but not only getting to play with that whole group again and bring back that wonderful family, it would be bringing those characters back. All those characters we played for 3 or 4 years, just that would make my heart sing, because I pretty much retired Penelope when that show was done. I bring her out for like charity events every once in a while, but
that was, you were playing her in the one shot that we did together.
Yeah, which was really fun. It was like getting to be her again, but
I was so sad though because I didn't find out till like the day of that you were playing Penelope, because otherwise I would have had my character Garlock, who wants to be everyone's friend like Penelope. I'm like, oh my
Oh,
god, I could have had them meet.
that would have been so great.
Another
Yeah.
time.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I think, you know, the way the show ended was so
Oh,
beautiful.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
we all got to have our entire story arc end, you know, our happy ending.
Hmm.
And it was, you know, a lot of times when shows just get canceled and you never get to have that closure,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
or the show just goes on and on and on. But for us to have that end, it was the only way that I could do it. It was just,
Yeah.
had we just been, and the show has had so many morphs. It's been so many things. It was
Yeah.
Heroes of the Veil, Beyond Heroes, Heroes of the Plane, then or it was Forge and Fire. It
Yeah.
was all of these things, because you know, things kept happening and we'd have to end the show, but they'd all be stopped unexpectedly,
Hmm.
and that broke my heart. You don't know how many times I cried over
Oh.
it, because you feel like you're just losing a family, you're
Yeah.
losing your character, all this adventure that you've had. And you know, bless Demiplane and Adam for bringing us back together for that, and allowing us to have an end to the show. It meant the world to me.
That's fantastic. And yeah,
Yeah.
that is an absolute beautiful way to have ended that with the wedding and everybody like getting to do their like you know, the end of the 80s movies were just like they went on to do.
Exactly. And you know what? It's if I have any advice to the people in chat, who I'm sure all of you guys play D&D, let's say a campaign is kind of dying out. You know, campaigns go on for years, but if you feel like it's starting to die out, or people aren't, you know, showing up as much or not making enough time for it, just find it in you to gather them up even just one more time,
Hell yeah.
so that you can have a closure for those characters and that story.
I fully endorse this. I've gotten to do the end of I think I've done about 5 campaigns that have had an ending. And endings are extremely important to me because like you were saying, like it has that closure, it has that like this had a end point, the story is over and everything like that. And they can be absolutely magical. One of them, I actually, my 4th edition game, the first game that I ever ran, I started in 2011 and it went till about 2012, and then we just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
And I actually decided in 2018 to get everyone back together, remake the characters in 5th edition, and
Yeah.
like do a giant time jump. And we ended the campaign, and everyone
Oh,
was like, that felt so
yeah.
good.
Yeah. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. All right, let's see if we can do a couple more of these. Lurking Writer says, question, how has your day job helped your TTRPG playing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they go hand in hand. Um, I don't like calling myself an actor. I don't
But
think
you
that
are, though.
it doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit.
Okay.
I feel like I'm a performer. I think there's a little difference in that.
Okay. Okay.
I always call myself a motion capture performer.
Hmm.
You know, you know, but it's there. I fell into acting, because did stunt work. So
That's
that's,
really good.
yeah. So I started out with stunts, and then slowly that like lent into like being an action actor, which is, you know, a stunt person who can act. And then that led into acting, which led into voice acting, which led into motion capture. And so I do have this, the biggest background, I think the biggest thing that helps me with my TTRPG was being a storyteller. You know, when I went to film school for film production, and uh, I wanted to be a director. And so I learned from you know, directors have to see the whole picture,
Hmm.
and they have to understand how everything fits into that whole picture. And then there's a common misconception with a lot of untrained actors. I'll say a lot of actors
Hmm.
understand this, but it's not about you. It's not about your character. It's about the story as a whole and how you fit into it and how you progress the story through
Yeah.
your character. And I think that that was the most important thing when coming to the table, is like, don't be selfish. It's not about you. It's about the company, and it's about the story, and you don't want to be stealing the spotlight, which I have been at tables where that is an issue.
Yeah.
So that has helped me more than anything. But of course, my work as a motion capture performer, where you're in this giant volume with absolutely nothing, and you're in these pajamas with little dots on them, and they say, "Okay, be a horse, be a troll, okay, go," and you're like, "Okay, this is where my imagination has to come into play," and so TTRPG feeds the motion capture, and motion capture feeds the TTRPG, because it's all just imaginary play. That's what I get to do all day in the volume for motion capture, is just become these characters with nothing but your imagination.
That's so cool. Yeah, no, that totally. I said, be a troll.
Be a troll.
I kind of want someone now like that, but for a DM who's just like, all right, troll, go.
I love that.
Well, we are running out of time here, but Hope, thank you so much for joining me today and talking with me. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah, thank you. I love chatting with you guys.
If people want to find you and your work on the interwebs, where could they do so?
They can follow me on Twitter. I'm at the Hope LaVelle. I post a lot of D&D stuff, and also when stuff comes up, like Idle Champions or the Familiar Quest Series 2.
Yeah.
It'll all be there and to remind you. And if you like D&D memes, I love that too. I try to post those every once in a while.
Those make me very happy.
Yes, absolutely.
But yes, again, thank you, Hope, for being on. Chat, you can check out, well, I guess also people in the future watching this on YouTube. Hi, people in the future. You can check out Familiar Quest Series 2 starting August 15th at 5 p.m. Pacific here on twitch.tv/CNE Games, and it will be up on YouTube later for you, future YouTube people. But again, Hope, thank you so much for being on. That is going to do it for this week's episode. So until next time, take care of yourself.